I'm 81 years old, and for the first time in my life, I'm not afraid of dying. And the reason why changed everything about how I'm living. My name is Raymond. I'm 81, and 6 months ago, something shifted in me. I'd spent my entire life terrified of death, avoiding even thinking about it, pretending it wasn't coming. And that fear controlled everything. Every choice I made, every risk I didn't take, every moment I wasted. But 6 months ago, I stopped being afraid. And once that fear lifted, I finally started actually living. I need to tell you what happened because I see people wasting their lives the same way I wasted mine, paralyzed by the fear of death, so scared of dying that they forget to live, and they don't realize that the fear of death is worse than death itself, that once you stop being afraid, everything changes. Let me explain where this fear came from. I was 8 years old when my grandfather died. It was 1951. He'd been living with us. I was close to him. And one morning, my mother came into my room crying and said Grandpa was gone. I didn't understand at first. Then she explained he'd died in his sleep, just stopped breathing, was there, and then wasn't. That terrified me. The idea that you could just stop existing, that one moment you're alive and the next you're gone, forever. I became obsessed with it, would lie awake at night thinking about death, about not being here anymore, about everything just ending, and the fear would grip me so tight I couldn't breathe. My parents told me not to think about it, that I was too young to worry about death, that it was far away, but I couldn't stop. The fear had taken root, and it grew with me, shaped everything about how I lived. I was afraid to take risks, because what if I died? Afraid to try new things because what if something went wrong? Afraid to really live because living meant eventually dying, and I couldn't handle that thought. I played it safe my whole life, took the secure job instead of the exciting one, stayed in my hometown instead of traveling, avoided anything that felt dangerous or unpredictable, built a life that was small and safe and completely controlled. Because if I controlled everything, maybe I could control death too. Maybe I could keep it away. But you can't. Death doesn't care how careful you are, how safe you play it, how much you try to control. It comes anyway. And all I did was waste decades being afraid of something I couldn't avoid. I got married when I was 26. Her name was Alice. She was adventurous, wanted to travel, wanted to try new things, wanted to really experience life. But I held her back, said we couldn't afford trips, said new experiences were risky, said we should save money and play it safe. Really, I was just afraid of flying, afraid of foreign countries, afraid of anything that reminded me I wasn't immortal. Alice stopped asking eventually, stopped suggesting adventures. We settled into a quiet, safe, boring life. And I told myself I was protecting us, keeping us safe. But really, I was just letting fear run everything. We had 2 children, Michael and Sarah, and I was a fearful father. Wouldn't let them do anything that seemed risky. No climbing trees, no riding bikes without me watching, no sleepovers at friends' houses, no adventures. I wrapped them in bubble wrap because I was terrified something would happen to them, that they'd die and I'd have to face the reality of death. They resented me for it, both of them, felt suffocated, couldn't wait to leave home. And when they did leave, they barely looked back, because I'd been so controlled by fear that I'd made their childhoods miserable. Alice died 12 years ago. She was 67, cancer. And watching her die was the thing I'd been afraid of my whole life, watching someone I loved fade away, watching death actually happen instead of just fearing it in the abstract. And you know what? It wasn't the fear that was hard, it was the regret. Sitting next to her hospital bed, holding her hand, I wasn't thinking about death. I was thinking about all the things we didn't do, all the trips we didn't take, all the adventures we didn't have, all the life we didn't live because I was too afraid. Alice said something to me the day before she died. She said she wished she'd pushed harder, wished she'd insisted we live instead of just exist, that she'd let my fear control her life too, and she regretted it. After she died, I fell apart, not because I missed her, though I did, but because I finally saw what I'd done. I'd wasted our life together, wasted her one precious life because I was afraid of death. And now she was gone, and I couldn't give her those experiences back. I spent the next 10 years in this fog of regret, going through motions, still afraid of death, but now also crushed by everything I'd lost to that fear. My kids rarely called. I was alone most of the time. And I was still playing it safe, still avoiding anything that felt risky, still controlled by fear, even though it had already cost me everything. Then 6 months ago, something happened. I had a minor heart attack, nothing major, but it sent me to the hospital. And lying in that hospital bed, hooked up to machines, I thought, this is it. This is how I die, in a hospital bed, having lived the smallest, safest, most fearful life possible. And I felt this wave of anger, not at death, at myself, at what I'd done with my life, at all the fear that had stolen everything from me. The doctors said I was fine, heart was okay, just needed some lifestyle changes. And when I got home, I sat in my house alone, and I had this realization. I'm 81 years old. I don't have much time left. Maybe a few years, maybe more if I'm lucky. And I've spent 81 years being afraid of something that's going to happen no matter what I do. What's the point? What's the point of being afraid? Death is coming. For me. For everyone. And no amount of fear will change that. All fear does is make the time before death worse. Makes you waste your life avoiding living because you're scared of dying. And right then, sitting in my living room, the fear just lifted. Not because I figured out how to avoid death, but because I accepted it. Death is coming, and that's okay. That's just what happens. Fighting it and fearing it doesn't change anything. It just makes everything worse. Once I accepted that, everything changed. I wasn't afraid anymore. And without that fear, I suddenly had this clarity about what actually mattered. I called my kids, really talked to them for the first time in years, apologized for being such a fearful father, for suffocating them, for letting my fear damage our relationships. They were surprised, but we started rebuilding, started actually connecting instead of just going through motions. I started doing things I'd been too afraid to do. I went to Europe, first time leaving the country, flew on a plane even though flying terrified me, walked around Paris and Rome and Barcelona, saw things I'd dreamed about for decades but been too afraid to actually do. I went skydiving at 81, because why not? I'm going to die anyway. Might as well feel alive first. And jumping out of that plane was the most alive I'd felt in 81 years. I started saying yes to things instead of no, started taking small risks, started living like someone who knows time is limited instead of like someone who thinks they can avoid death by being careful. And I'm happier now at 81 than I've ever been, not because I have more time, but because I'm finally using the time I have, finally living instead of just avoiding death. Here's what I learned. Death isn't the problem. Fear of death is the problem. Death is just a fact. It's coming. You can't avoid it or control it or stop it. But you can waste your whole life being afraid of it. Can let that fear steal everything that makes life worth living. Or you can accept it. Accept that you're going to die, that everyone dies, that this is temporary. And once you accept that, the fear loses its power, and you're free to actually live. I wasted 81 years being afraid, letting fear control every choice, missing out on everything because I was trying to avoid the unavoidable. And I can't get those years back, but I have whatever time I have left. And I'm not wasting another second of it. I'm 81, and I no longer fear death, not because I figured out how to avoid it, but because I finally accepted it. And that acceptance gave me something fear never could. Freedom to actually live. Subscribe if you're ready to stop letting fear steal your life.